Welcome to the Creative Monitor Podcast, where we speak with innovators, creatives, and storytellers within the YouTube space. Today's guest is none other than Toby Burnett, otherwise known as LostHoboFilmz. With a channel closing in at 6,000 subscribers, and he's still continuing his over 9-year series Recruits, Toby has more than solidified his legacy in the machinima space. During our time together, we spoke on his channel's humble beginnings, the popular series of Recruits, and what is next for his channel. I'm your host, Camden P. Crawford, and thank you for tuning in. Well, welcome, Toby, to the podcast. Thank you so much for stopping by and hanging the chat with me a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, as we were talking about before, I honestly wasn't expecting to get a response from you, let alone like you accepting the podcast.
Yeah, well, I was quite surprised. I'm not gonna lie, because you said you had a whole list of people that you wanted to come forward for the podcast, and I was very surprised to think I would be in that list. To be honest,
you're 100% in the top 5 people that I wanted to have on the podcast.
Wow.
And I just waited. I waited until I got some people that I knew. I talked with Hugh, I talked with Dan, I talked with Red, people that I know, and then I was like, all right, it's time to branch out a little bit. And now we have you here, which is exciting.
Yeah, but thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So I guess we should just start things out with, tell me about yourself and kind of your history as the channel. Like, at the beginning of the podcast, as I do with everyone, I give kind of a brief introduction about who they are, but I want to hear kind of from your own words. What is LostHoboFilmz and who is Toby in the community?
Okay, well, it probably goes down the same avenue of a lot of people's channels. But essentially with me, what started off LostHoboFilmz was just a collection of friends coming together after school, essentially, to create silly content. Whether that be, silly challenges going around town, making gaming videos, and then it comes with machinima, because we all knew machinima at the time. We were all big fans of course, Red versus Blue. I mean, who isn't?
Right.
But it kind of just like after school, we would go back to my place, do whatever the hell we wanted. We were kids, of course, like not kids, but teenagers at the time, and just mess around, and it just developed from there, really. And I thought, you know what, I actually enjoy doing this, and I would try and pursue my my skills in it, essentially, and here I am. But yeah.
So at the beginning of LostHoboFilmz, there was 5 of you? Was there more than that?
There was myself, we had like what I call the 3 founders of the channel, which is myself, my friend Bradley, and my friend Connor. Both of them, you'll find that most of my local friends voiced in Recruits in the original season. They both voiced in season 1, which was Laggy and Phil. And I've obviously voiced Networking Glitch, which is basically characters from Recruits, by the way. I didn't mention that. My show Recruits, which is the main show. So we started off with us 3 messing around after school. Then we brought along my friend Taylor, who would help out, and then my friend Wesley. And us 5 kind of just, ran the channel for the first, I'd say, 2.5, 3 years. Just making content, which was really fun, as younger people mess around, and it's just fun times. But now it is just like a solo channel, unfortunately. Bradley and Connor don't really have a tie in it anymore, but they do like to chip in when they can.
So was the what was kind of the plan for LostHoboFilmz? Was there a goal in mind, or is it just kind of a group of friends getting together and making fun, silly videos for fun in that sense, and then it just kind of evolved into this kind of one-man show but huge production kind of aspect?
Yeah, so it's funny you should say that, because there was a phase about a couple years in, we thought, we actually want to get serious with this, because we were all fans, as I say, Red vs. Blue, which is Rooster Teeth. And I was an admirer of Rooster Teeth a lot, and being someone who is, British origin, obviously I wasn't American, so I was like, okay, maybe I can make a British version of Rooster Teeth. And I was like, okay, let's try and make different bits of content for my channel. And we did have the admiration to actually create a little company. We thought we had roles like dedicated to each other. So Wesley would be the finance manager. We had it all sorted out. we had loads of roles for different people. Of saying, okay, if we come together, we can actually make this happen. Of course, that is just a fever dream, really. But we did try. We had that thought process. But as the content and the years went on, everyone else had career choices and they grew up essentially. And we kind of got into the realism of things, and I kind of just carried on what I enjoyed most, which was machinima. So we did have that phase of, look, we could go big with this, but it never happened. Of course, it would be nice to. It could potentially happen at some point, but,
I mean, like, in the machinima community, kind of, the staple as I see that is if you made it is getting over 5,000 subscribers because of how niche we are. That's how I feel it is, because, like, it's so hard to get to that point, because most of the big channels, like, that we noticed in the community got to around 2,000. And then, like, we get to the 5,000, which is, like, you and Red. And then we get to 10,000 with Chronicler. And then Nightmare Films is just in his own world away from the rest of us.
He struck the gold mine there, yeah.
He struck more than the gold mine. I think he made his own mine.
Yeah, true.
But it's kind of interesting to see where you start in this. And do you feel like, because when I first discovered you, it was the Spartan Prison series, especially that first episode. Like, I think I personally watched that, like, when I was a huge fan of machinima, like, watching, I think I gave you about 5 views for that video specifically.
Don't tell me you watched all of that.
Yeah, I watched all of it.
Oh my days. I'll tell you what, fun fact about that, the whole thing, the entire series of that was all unscripted. It didn't have a script at all.
Oh, I could tell.
Yeah, it was all made up. Yeah, why am I even saying that? Of course you can tell. It's shit. but yeah, no.
There must be somewhat of a kind of a weird connection to that series, because, like, that first episode's closing in on 150,000 views.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah, I don't know how it got that many views, honestly. Something happened in the YouTube algorithm that made it just pop off, and I wish it happened to Recruits. But it happened to that instead. But you know what? I'll take it as a win, because, it wasn't my best piece of work, but it got out there somehow. And that's how most people know me, by saying, oh, I used to know you because of Spartan Prison. I was like, oh, of course you do. Oh, but you know what? I'll take it.
So so Spartan Prison came about from that was kind of your one of your first staple projects. Of course, you had Recruits that started 9 years ago, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But Spartan Prison, like, really, I feel like took off your channel. And so what kind of was the process when that video kind of started getting traction? Was it kind of bittersweet? Was it like just excitement? And how did that transition into moving into your, like, general everyday content that you now do?
So at that point in time, I reckon I was about, I was about 14, 15. That was like a pinnacle of excitement for me, because when that kicked off, I was like, right, okay, now I need to move up a stage, which is not just make content for shits and giggles, but make content that is somewhat, like, you can tell there's effort put into it. So that's when I thought, I need to get an actual production going here and actually start making content that is worth seeing, if that makes sense. I want people to actually realize when they watch it, like, okay, he's actually put work into it properly. So that kind of opened up that gateway, which is when Recruits kind of developed a little bit more professionally. And then that's when I started branching from other people and getting people in to help me out, and starting to have, instead of like relying on local people, all my friends around me, rely on people in the community, essentially. And that's when I had the crew come in, and they've been a very big help, even to this day.
So where was the transition from having those local friends to building more of an online crew of people that were dedicated to helping you make content?
It was when I realized I didn't have enough friends to cast the entire, for recruits. I had too many characters essentially. So I was like, right, okay, I need to actually find people online. So casting Core Club, I don't know if it's still around now. I haven't been on it in ages, but
Oh, it's still kicking.
it's still kicking. Yeah, so I used that. And my first, I think my first person to get in contact with me was a guy called GH Nathan, who is now retired from Machinima, but he made a series called Agent Zero. I don't know if you know of him,
yeah.
but yeah, he
Good
was
old classic.
a great help. Sorry?
It's a classic, I think, at this point.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was good. It was good, but he helped me out a lot, and we became good friends from it. And then from there, I had Angel on my shoulder come in, and then Brian, who back in the day was called BTA Machinima, but again he's kind of left Machinima now. But yeah, they came from Casting Core Club, I believe, and they're like the OG crew, I would say. And they helped me out a lot. And then obviously Nightmare Films helped out a lot, hence my name on my channel. People have kind of questioned that throughout the years, but it all came from him. And he has, or people don't know this, but I have been given authority to actually use that back in the day. I actually asked him if I could use the name Films with a Z, as well as start off my show Recruits, based in the same universe as his old show Rookies. And we had a good discussion about it, and it just he said yes to it, and I was like, I wasn't going to do anything until he said yes. So as soon as he did that, I was like, fine, and I popped off from there. But yeah.
How do you because you mentioned a lot of people who like BTA and GH Nathan, and how do you view like the machinima community now as all these like creators that we've kind of either grown up with or like been friends with or like looked up to in the community have kind of moved on from even Arbiter 617 and Mike WB to Evan Royalty to you could name hundreds of creators. How do you kind of view our community moving on, as there hasn't been really people to take that place necessarily?
Yeah, it's a shame really for me because I don't get involved as much as I used to, so I don't actually have the knowledge of like who is about in the machinima community these days. I wish I did. I wish I had more involvement, but my life just takes me away from that a little bit more now. But it is true, a lot of people do tend to leave and then they don't come back, and it's like, will there ever be someone that would replace them to that caliber? Like Digital Virus, for example, another name there. But it's a lot of these people tend to go away, and then it's hard to fill those shoes, especially with a niche community. But I think as long as there's creators in the community, I think we're just fine, because at the end of the day, machinima is a small community no matter what. It just will forever be that small community. But as well as the way Halo's going at the moment, I mean, hopefully it gets a bit better. But it's just that way. But I feel like there's always a fresh mind that comes into it that gets inspiration, and it is the cycle. I always remember when I was younger, I took inspiration from many creators, and I just hope, and I think that still happens. A lot of younger people come in and see our content and go, "Oh wow, I really actually want to try that on myself," and they do it. So I have like faith in that. So I do see now and then smaller channels doing content. I just appreciate that. I just keep on telling them to keep going, because a lot of these days people do just tend to try it one off and then stop. But I do like people that actually go for it, and I still see that to this day. So yeah,
and I know that as you said, you're not as involved with everyone in the machinima community as you used to, but I feel like there is like we don't feel as far apart as we used to. I feel like during the 2010 to 2012 era, where a lot of people say is the golden age of Halo machinima, there was kind of a huge disparity. Like everyone got views, no matter if you made the worst machinima possible, you got views. And there was kind of a separation between these channels that had 10 to 100,000 subscribers, and then the channels that were just as dedicated doing like having 100 to 5,000 subscribers. And I feel like something that's interesting how it's shifted is we don't really have those 100,000 subscribers, but even the people who are at that 10,000 range still are very active traction with the community. Yeah. They're still very much like, you can still talk to these people like they're human. Like, like it seems like they're like, we used to have kind of celebrity machinima directors. And I think at this point, we're now at a point like where they're not that far out of reach. Yeah. And we're all kind of closer friends trying to, because it's harder to make machinima now. It's harder to get 16 player lobbies. So everyone helping out each other is kind of we're kind of in a different headspace now. So with that said, kind of moving into the production of recruits, for instance, which congrats on 9 years of recruits. And that's insane. And you're almost coming in at the finishing of season 5, which we'll talk about that here in a moment. But how does it work when you're making a recruits episode and needing these big lobbies? Are you doing what I call the Dan Man method, which you have all the controllers in the world making your own project by yourself? Or how do you are able to get these maybe 16 player lobbies if you need it? Or have you had to shrink like what scripts that you normally would have?
So of course the show Recruits has gone on for a while now, which indicates different stages really, because I mean the first 2 to 3 seasons had a completely different method of going about things than these days. Essentially back then what I would have done is I would have done the Dan method, and I had 2 Xboxes, 8 controllers, system link. Didn't need many body actors really. I mean, season 1 was completely different. That was just making my friends come along with me online, and we just did really poor body acting together in a lobby. But season 3 was like all myself. There was no body actors whatsoever. It was just me, 2 Xboxes. I just did some trickery with the camera to make it look like, there was a lot of people. And then when it came to season 4 and 5, I wanted to branch out, and I needed to branch out to body actors because of Halo 5, which the different mechanics, no split screen. So that was a pain because obviously it is hard to get people on to get full lobbies. But back in season 4, it was probably the easiest. That's where I had most traction with people. They would come along. It was exciting to actually have people that are wanting to help out in that. People still do. It's lovely. I get body actors, but it does tend to drop in numbers these days. Just because of where we're at in the Halo scenario at the moment. So there is stages and it is hard, but I say that, the body acting itself is a pain in the ass and it is a struggle. And it's probably the most difficult process in my machinima production currently, I say.
Well, especially with like when you're trying to do bigger and bigger things, and you don't have the people to be able to surround you to be able to do that. I remember when I was doing Machinima Simulator, that old fossil, it was 16 player lobbies, every single lobby, because there was 12 directors in like every single scene, plus like extra characters. And it was just and this is back in 2015 where there was still a decent amount of people, but it was difficult enough then. So nowadays when we have the issues of Halo Infinite and Halo 5 and people just staying in Halo Reach for the most part, which can be a struggle in that mind. It kind of does it make you what is the word for it? Does it discourage you when making Halo Machinima that it's not as easy to get everyone involved as it used to be?
To be honest with you, a little bit, yes, but there's always ways around it. There's creators nowadays that, as I say, I'm not so much of a focused content creator now, so I do like to see how other people go about things. And nowadays, compared to what it was back then, people can now actually get around a lot of these issues by actually editing and animating and chroma keying, cropping. They have all these editing skills and software that, you know, not a lot of people had back then. And I feel like a lot of people can get away with it. But yeah, it does it does kind of take me, you know, it gives me a step back sometimes when I look at it that way. But, you know, I have the determination to carry on, as, you know, I don't like to stop things where they are. I like to carry on. That's why I'm still doing recruits to this day. So, you know, there's always a determination there to get things done, no matter how hard it is. And I'll get there. It just means more time. But that's the realism of it.
Yeah. And so, transitioning here, now we're actually getting into nitty-gritty of recruits. 9 years, closing in on 5 seasons, 2 Halos. What? Yeah. How do you feel after all this, and what kind of is your what are some of your highlights from making this monster of a series?
Oh, well, it's kind of crazy to think back on it, really, because to me, Recruits is very special because it's something that kept me occupied whenever I was bored or whenever I felt alone or whatever. You know, throughout my whole teenage life, I've dealt with recruits. I started when I was 12, 13. You know, I started when 343 branched out and Bungie, you know, stopped Halo. So when Halo 4 released, I started doing recruits. And from that day one to now, I look back, I just think, oh wow, I actually gained so many friends and so many opportunities just from that, you know, one thought of, you know, I'm going to create a show that's, you know, essentially a knockoff from Rookies at the start from Nightmare Films, which it was. And I'm surprised he said yes to it back then. But I wanted to obviously change the story up and make it my own. And I did that exact same thing, and he came along for the ride, and he actually was in part of the story itself. But I created so many fond memories from it, and I don't think I regret a single moment of it, really, because it made so many connections. It got me actually involved in liking film and pursuing my career in film and TV. I've been a producer for events, which is under the same canopy for my one of my jobs. So all inspired from doing machinima, essentially. So I respect it for that. And I do like to pursue doing that on the side anyway. I'm not stopping here. I would like to carry on, whether that be obviously machinima as well as live action things. So yeah, I think I look back at it and I think, well, I don't regret it.
Do you have a favorite episode that you've made through these 5 seasons, or one that really like catches your eye that you've had just a unique time making that episode?
I have. There's been so many episodes, but there's one of my favorites would have to be a recent one, actually, in season 5, episode 5, I believe, which is so the title I can't even remember. It's something always green or something like that. But it was the first time where I had people questioning, "Wow, how did you get to this step? Like, how have you got this far?" And I had to question myself. I have no idea how. I just, you know, worked on it throughout the years. And it was an episode where it featured. I had many cameos throughout the show, and I still have one major one to go in my last 3 episodes, which I'm very excited for people to hear. And I can't believe I got this person on board to do a cameo. But so that's something to get excited for. But the cameo I got in episode 5 was Jeff Steitzer, the Halo announcer. And he came on board. I just emailed him because one of my voice actors was an intern at 343 Industries. And he essentially said, "I can get you through to Jeff Steitzer if you want. I can send you his email." And I was like, "If you can do that, go ahead. But I doubt I'll get a reply." And he replied to my email, and he said, "Sure, I love doing voice work for community videos." I was like, "Well, cool. All right." So I sent him a script, and he did those lines, and I just posted the video, and I got comments saying, "How the hell have you got to this stage? Like, how do you do it?" And then that's when I thought, That's when I had the greedy sort of like, oh, I'm proud of myself, that sort of vibe. I don't like that vibe, but I had it for a split second. I thought, oh, I don't know how I got there, but I had that excitement there. But yeah, that was a good moment in the recruits, I guess, timeline you could call it. But yeah.
But that's a attribution to you, like as a apparently I can't speak English and I can't say that word, but but like to have someone as big of a name as that, it really brought somewhat of an authenticity to your series that, though it kind of already has been at I'll reiterate 5 seasons long, 9 years in a running, which is incredible, but also having these larger names in your series and cameos is quite remarkable, honestly. And it doesn't happen often, especially with our niche community. And it's kind of nice to see whenever those things kind of transpire and happen, and that it kind of brings a bit of, oh yeah, they do see us. And I don't know if you feel that, but it's just kind of feels, it's kind of a feel good thing, even though it didn't happen directly to me. It's like, oh, that happened to somebody that I know or that I work with, or that is just like within arm's reach. Someone from 343 noticed, or someone from Bungie did this. And it's just kind of I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know if you feel the same way of that. It feels kind of interesting or unique, not interesting.
Yeah, no, I get you. But my outlook has always been the same when it came to this sort of thing, because the way I see it is, if people put in the work and like they carry on and they put in the effort, some point someone's going to see that and go, okay, they are obviously legit about this because they are keen, to do this content. So they kind of, they chime in. Whereas if people just make 2 or 3 videos and go, oh, I don't know if I'm going to carry on with this show or this series, and they stop it, I hate that, because I'm like, carry on, because once you carry on and have the determination to just keep going and get to that final episode, and it proves that you are willing to just complete it and put the effort in. If you don't show that effort, I reckon people just you won't have the people there to help you out, because why would they if you don't want to even try in your own efforts to get the content done? So if people continue and just have the motivation and the determination to get that content done and have a kind of an idea and a clear mind about it, I reckon that comes with great benefit later on when people come to you. And I believe that because I've experienced that a little bit. And I appreciate that a lot, because when I look back at it, I thought I had times where I was about to stop and I didn't really want to carry on anymore. But as soon as I got word and a bit of support saying, carry on, you're doing well, you just got to continue, I continued. And no matter how much traction or how much popularity I would get, I knew I wouldn't get a lot anyway going down the road. Not to the god level, as people call it. But you just got to carry on, no matter how you think people would take it. And eventually someone will just see it and go, I want to help out, and that's the way I always looked at it. And I do think it's a shame when a lot of people just give up early on.
What do you think is the main cause of that? Do you think it's more of lack of motivation, lack of self-confidence, or just laziness?
I think it's a lot of it is due to age as well, I believe. A lot of people start in the young teens, which have a different outlook to slightly older people. I think young teenagers like to start off with machinima and think it's going to be all dandy and it's going to be all well and good, and you're going to oh, look at me, I'm making good content. And then when they have the content released, they look at other people that are doing better than them and they get jealous, I feel. And then they just go, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. And they put it in the, put the pin in the head sort of thing. And they don't realise that that what they're doing is they're not enjoying it. And it means that, of course, they're not actually in it, I think people that tend to do content early on and feel like they're actually in it and they're looking at it and go, okay, I can have feedback from other people, not get jealous from people that are doing better than me, but I can take feedback from them and try and get in contact with them and then continue from there. That's when people are going to continue and thrive a little bit more. But the people that kind of give up a little bit, I think, just have that mindset of, they don't think they're good enough. They're jealous of the people that are making content, good enough content that they see that's better than them, and they just stop there, which I think is a shame, really. But that's what I think's happened.
I think there's also an aspect of like a lot of people want to rush into the big, huge projects, right? They want to make they want to make the next Rise of the Spartans. They want to make Dawn of the Titans. They want to make these big cinematic projects, which is awesome, and it's cool if you can do it. But there's also a bit when you start really young, like starting in your teens, by the time you're finished with that project, you have grown past that project. I knew that was a big issue with like even some of mine, where I'd get to the end of the project and I'd get into the final editing phase, and it would be so hard to complete it because you're like, this shot is awful. This doesn't make any sense. Why did I do it this way? This voice actor needs to redo all their lines. And but you're a year or two in, and I think that also has an kind of attribute to that.
Yeah, it definitely does.
You grow, and you don't want to show people what you are not proud of, because you would have been proud a year ago, but not necessarily today. Yeah.
People do have bigger minds than they actually got when it comes to machinima. They love to do a long-term plan. I've heard so many people, younger people, saying, I've got a 10-year plan for a series I want to make. And I just giggle to myself and go, look, bud, good on you, good luck to you, but...
I'm pretty sure Chronicler's the only one that can do that, and you can believe him.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he's a different breed, isn't he? He's a different breed. And
100%.
When you come to it, you're like, look, dude, you got that aspiration and the motivation now, but when you get into it, you're going to have a completely different mindset, and you know that it's just not going to be that realistic. You just got to have a smaller goal in mind and then develop it from there. But you can't just go in thinking, okay, I'm going to do this massive project, because it will tie you up, and you'll burn yourself out and you'll give up.
100%. And kind of bouncing back to recruits, I did have this interesting question. So when there's kind of two types of people I find when it comes to machinima series, there's a person who's kind of takes it season by season, and they go into it to make a season, and then from that point, then they move on to the next season. There's also the kind of person that comes in and is like, I have a plan. This is how many seasons it's going to last. And this is this is at least my end goal. And however long it takes to get to that point, that's the end of the season. I'm curious for you, how has recruits evolved? Is it in the camp of where it's just going season by season and seeing where it goes? Or do you have a kind of an end date that for recruits, like a point where you're like, this is where the story is complete?
Yeah, so the earlier seasons, I had a kind of a plan for about 1 or 2 seasons, and that was that. And it was all around the war games and, the war games competition and being funky and a bit silly with recruit soldiers, a bit of a comedic story, really. And I was planning to release each season every year at a specific date. So if you go back, you can see season 1, season 2, season 3, and season 4, I believe, all started on September 1st. And I would make sure that would be the case. I just wanted to release 1 season per year. And in season 5 changed that way too much, because going back to the previous discussion about having 2 big goals in your head, even I did that way later on, and I had way too much of a big story to actually complete within a year, and it was ridiculous. But so I tried to get it done each year, and then when it came to season 5, it was just basically too much of a big hassle, and it turned out to be what now? I'm in my 4th year of season 5, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I dread it. I wish I could just complete season 5 in 1 year and be done with it. But I wish I was already in season 7 by now, but I'm not. yeah, it's ridiculous really with how big of the production was. But I can't really remember the point of your question actually. What
Oh,
was the point?
The point of the question is, where has your recruits evolved to, and is there an end point that you see? Is there a story point you're trying to get to?
Yeah. There was always an end point when it came to later years. When as I say, in the early 2 years, I only had like the 2 seasons in mind. But when I branched out from that, I did have a story planned, and all the way till now, I had it all planned. So season 4 and 5, I've had in the back of my head on notes on Microsoft Word documents. I've had it for years and years, stored up, ready to go. And season 5 is where I wanted it to end. I wanted 5 seasons worth of this story, which I have now come to call the Forerunner Saga, which is a culmination basically of this core basic story, which is about an ancient guy creating a competition, a war games competition with recruits due to contacting a Forerunner, and it all branched off from there. These 5 seasons are basically all from that, so I would like to call it the Forerunner Saga. And then in the future, I am planning to do a season 6, and I hoped it was going to be on Halo Infinite, but with the way that's going, plans are changing. But that is going to be a start of a brand new story, and it's going to be a soft reboot, essentially, and not so much of a production as Season 5 is. I want to go back to the way things were a little bit, where it was a little bit funky, a little bit comedic. Still have the professionalism there. I still want the professionalism, but I'm just going to have it a bit more relaxed and not so much outgoing with all these elements. So that's the plan.
And I remember back in a couple years ago when you wanted to make season 5, I believe, in Halo Infinite, and it didn't work out. And because there was you had a whole video for it and how it's going to continue in Halo Infinite, and then it didn't work out. But so with season 6, like you saying that way Halo Infinite is looking, do you think the Forge is not going to be what it is come the end of this year, to where you can comfortably make it in season 6 in Halo Infinite?
I think the Forge is going to be where it is at the end of the year, but I think it's going to be too advanced for my motivation to even carry on, if that makes sense, into that game. Because Forge is getting ridiculous now, where it's like it is getting so good that you can't really tell between what's a dev map and what's a Forge map. And people are really, really good in the community of creating maps. And not only map making and Forge making, but of animating and script writing. People are just doing better and better things now with the software that we've got. And as Halo gets better as well, I feel like my skills are going to be left behind a little bit, and that's where I get worried. When Forge comes out, I'm worried that I'm not just going to have the determination to even figure out a lot of the tools, because back in the day, Halo Reach and Halo 3, all you got to do was just plop an object down, had a couple of features for that object and be done with it. You
had about 10 objects, variety in size, and you just moved them around, and there you go. There's your map, and everyone was like, wow, this is incredible. How did you do it?
No prefabs, none of that. So
no generating lighting.
Yeah, and now with Halo Infinite, I heard they were implementing AI into it now, and you can actually make things. I don't know. They're doing loads of crazy things, which is good, and I love it. I just don't think I'm going to be able to pursue it, because I just can't have the time or the determination to do it. But we'll never know.
It is fascinating, though, because back in Halo 3 and Halo Reach and even Halo 4, to the extent, it was still at a time where it was such a small crew that was needed. You could do it with one person. But now as Halo 5 and Halo Infinite now has kind of transitioned to us, and having animators, having people who are specifically good at Forge, you kind of need to find all these people for your team to make just the simplest of projects at this point.
Yeah.
And it's it's interesting just trying to make yourself what was acceptable even 5 years ago is almost not necessarily acceptable to the audience, but not acceptable to us directors, because we're such a in my personal opinion, we're such at a high point that there's so like the ceiling is forever away.
Yeah.
But even our floor has like just raised so much because of what's acceptable to us.
Yeah, and I am very old school as well. Like I am from day one. I've wanted the old school head bobbing style of machinima, like Red vs. Blue, and I've been that way forever. I've always done it, and I love that core Red vs. Blue season 6 vibe of machinima. No animation, no nothing. I loved it. Whatever's from the game you used, essentially. And the element of that has kind of gone away a lot now. And it's really cool because people make really cool content from all these different elements now, externally from the games. But I think personally, I just don't want to make something that's not purely original from Halo. When it comes to machinima, especially Halo machinima in general, but it comes to a point where like, yes, I put animation in it, but I feel like a lot of people just tend to do it a little bit too much, and then what's the fine line between animation and machinima, and what's you know what I mean, and then the term of machinima can change then, and then I feel like what is machinima? But
do you think it pulls you out of a machinima?
It does a little bit. And, people say, oh, what does machinima mean? Back in the day, I would have said, well, machine cinema, machinima, it is content you create from a game. It is a story you make from a game. And you have that core sentence from a game. And when you animate and when you put all these other elements into it, it's not from the game as such. It is just models and assets you've got from that game ripped out of the game, and you're just making it in your own and then putting it back in. Whereas I thought machinima was purely like you're making stuff from that said disc, from back in the day. Whatever disc you put in, you make content from that game. But it's all gone advanced now, and as I say, I appreciate it because you can make some really, really cool content that you can never do before. And it improves the storytelling and it improves everything. But I'm just one of those old school people that I just have a special place with classic machinima.
I think it's also been like in like the classic bit of machinima though. I think that's also been pushed to a higher standard because like with the newer stuff you have like a whole bunch of animated fight scenes. You have advanced forge maps. You have like the people at Last Second Films. They have like 50 maps to get over one scene with green screens. Yeah. It is fascinating to just listen to them talk about it. But like with the old school of machinima, I feel like there's such a high quality with it because there's no gimmicks. It's it's very much a there's a certain style that they have, and they excel at it. I think when I was talking with Zed about just the way he films his shots, or Vengeful, who I'm a close friend with, they're very specific with their shots, and it's not no animation is added, no modded maps. It is like as pure Halo as it comes. And as Halo evolves as well, Halo from 4 and 5 and Infinite, it all evolved, and that also helps out with the advancement of that side of things. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to have external measures to improve your machinima. As long as you do it right within the game, you can improve yourself. Like you say, there's examples there. You can do really decent stuff. How do you feel about people who refuse to leave Halo 3 and Halo Reach? As someone who my favorite game is Halo 3, and I think Halo 3 machinimas look the best. That's my opinion as well. How do you feel about people who aren't able to get out of their zone? Like a lot of people are stuck in Halo Reach. Dan will never leave Halo 4 till the day he dies. I believe he's like one of the only people that have stuck with Halo 4. He's the only person that uses Halo 4. Yeah, it's crazy. But what do you feel about that? Like not willing to even you transitioned to Halo 5. And so how do you think people need to push themselves to change with the times, to change to a different game? Or do you think, like, are you in the camp that do what you want, just use the old games, it doesn't matter? Because like Halo Reach has always been it feels like every shot has been done. Like I can tell
Halo
you
Reach is the
exactly what has
staple
been
of that.
done. Like I can tell you that map exactly was used in the 2-hour mark in this ROTS episode, or or here's the canyon side of the Forge world. It's
you what. This is why people ask me, why don't you watch machinimas when you're interested in machinima? That is exactly the reason why. Halo Reach, it's so the same. Every shot, everything I see now. Obviously, it's been out for so many years. Over 10 years now, and. When I try and watch Halo Reach Machinima, I appreciate it. It's good content, and they may have a good story going, but I just cannot watch it because it's just all the same stuff, and it's not their fault. They're making what they want, and it's their hobby, so all for it. But my God, is it the same shit? And it does get that way, especially with Halo 3 as well as Halo Reach. You watch those machinimas and you think, why are you still on that game? Because a lot of people just won't tend to stick around. You think would not stick around to watch it because it's just the same stuff over and over, unless you have other ideas to make things different. But Halo Reach always seems to be popular, though. I feel like it's still got that popularity. I don't know.
I think that's what makes Dan and Halo 4 very interesting, because a lot of people hate Halo 5, so they won't even go near Halo 5.
Is that on? I agree with them 100%. I want to fucking burn it.
I know people who, but like it goes to extreme. I know people who won't even play custom games in Halo 5 because they just have such a hate for it.
Mm-hmm.
But then so they'll just play cat and mouse in Halo Reach forever. So do you think there will? I almost feel like there will be a resurgence with Halo 3 and Halo 4 machinimas, that because people are looking for an outlet that is not Halo Reach, that has been done every single day for the past 10 years, 12 years. So do you feel that sentiment, or are you really looking into like people being pushed into the Halo 5, Halo Infinite aspect?
I feel like, cause if someone creates machinima, it's their own doing, and they're doing it because that's what they're interested in. So I think it's fine for people to stick with their morals when it comes to what game they use. And if people aren't using newer games, I'm not really bothered personally, because I appreciate their opinions on the games. And, what they make is their content. So
I'm more curious where you think things are going to transition. Do you think there's going to be is it going to resurgent in the older games, or do you think people will adhere to Halo 5 and Infinite in the future?
If Infinite puts its boot down, then I think it would have a peak in Infinite for sure. Because there's no content whatsoever in Infinite when it comes to machinima, hardly ever at the moment. So if Infinite actually becomes a good game at some point, then I think there will be a peak in Infinite, because they have brought a lot of elements from Reach into that game anyway. So Reach is definitely a peak of said machinima, in the history of machinima, and I do think that peak can come again if Infinite, sorts its shit out. Halo 5, no, that's long gone. Halo 5 is a game that's kind of missed the beat there when it comes to machinima. I think most content creators just won't bother with it. There's just so many things that are different in that game. It's like a one-off scenario when it comes to Halo games. So as long as Infinite gets its, its shit sorted, I think it'll be fine with machinima.
So it's far and few between like your channel being going away from recruits at very small points in time. You've done Fruits and you've done Regiments Part 1 and 2. Part 2 is 6. When you were doing the project of that, that's when we met 6 years ago.
Was it?
I was the pilot in Part 2.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Yeah, and so
right. I would have never have known that.
Yeah,
so.
I texted I because you were like looking for people to do minor roles, and that was the first time I texted you and like added you as a friend, and you were just like, yeah, sure, do the lines, whatever.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so that was back when that was when we first met. But how do you look at those projects that are outside of your normal Recruit series, and do you think you'll ever take a break from Recruits to go back to something else that's a little different?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to, because obviously Recruits has gone on for a long time. And And it feels bad actually for me to say I don't remember any of this. It's really bad. I don't remember like you doing that in regiments. That's why I'm so out of the loop when it comes to other things. I'm so focused on recruits, which is kind of a bad thing, really. I do want to stop recruits eventually and focus on something completely different, because I think it would be a fresh start, not only for everyone else but for me as well. And it will prove what else I can do as well in regards to storytelling and machinima. But because I've got so much stuff that I feel like I haven't proven myself with when it comes to a whole different atmosphere when it comes to a story, and it's always been about that one core universe. So it'd be nice to move away and focus on actually doing a couple of machinima shorts again. I haven't done a lot of those in years, but in regards to those, I kind of just forget they exist, honestly, which is sad to say. But I look back at it and go, oh yeah, I did that. I don't really like it, but I did it, sort of vibe. But recruits is where I'm most proud about and most proud at. But I wouldn't mind going back to do one or two different bits with a completely different story. That would be quite nice.
Do you think it would be more of a short, a film, a different series? Where do you think that you'll dip your toes in next?
I would like to do a short series at one point, because I want to do something smaller. As I said before, like season 5, it was such a big project, and it still is. I want anything that I'm going to do next, I want to make it much smaller. So I would make things that are kind of short. So machinima shorts I would definitely do. And if I wanted to make a series again, I would make a shorter one with shorter lengths of episodes. 10 minutes at most. I would just make smaller projects. I think it'd be nicer for me, because the motivation going on this long has drained me, to the T. So it would be nice to just take a step back and relax a bit more, and not panicking and worrying about when this will, get done, and relying on so many things. So yeah, I would say I would do smaller projects.
So 9 years in the bag, going on 10. Season 5 of Recruits coming up this spring. What besides that? What's next for Lost Hobo Films? What are we dreaming about for the channel next, or where are we heading?
Well, I know the channel is quite dry at the moment, and it will be for quite some time until Recruit Season 5, the 3 finale episodes come out. But after that, I do have some plans in the making, and I want to make the channel alive again. In terms of the actual content, I will be making some live action films. I've been wanting to do that for years, and I wanted to prove my skill base in that, because that's where I want to pursue my career in, and I have been doing that for quite a few years anyway, outside of machinima. So I will be posting a lot of live action content, and people might go, oh god, not that. For the machinima folk, but don't you worry, with the machinima I will be doing a lot more of that anyway, just on the one-off and smaller projects, but I will still be doing it. I won't be retiring, as they say in the community.
You're not one of the retiring type?
No, I will still be there. I'll be like a hovering head, I have been for years anyway, but I will always be around for people. If anyone needs help or advice, I'm always there to give that, and I appreciate seeing how people do anyway these days. I kind of step back and look now, and as soon as Recruits is done, I will do that more so. But yeah, I'm very looking forward to Recruits, and it's going to be big. The finale, I hope, will be the biggest project I've done since, and I hope people will see the work that's been put into it, because it's going to be crazy. Awesome,
man. Well, thank you, Toby, again for taking the time to kind of hang out and chat with me, and just kind of gloss over your 10-year machinima career. Where
people be falling asleep at this point,
right? Let's see if people got to this point. Hey, if anyone got to this point in the video, put in the comment section fruits with a Z in the and we'll see how many people got to this point.
Yeah,
but
well, let's hope.
Where can people look you up? Where can people look you up, Toby? What are some links of where they can find you?
So you can find me obviously on YouTube, LostHoboFilmz. Instagram is one I use a lot. Just my name is Toby Burnett. I use that a lot. So if people want to follow me there, you can as well. I also am on Discord, so if anyone wants to message me on there, I'm sure you can put it in the description or whatever, but I'm on Discord, and Xbox as well. If anyone feel free, if anyone wants advice or help with anything, if I'm on, I can help out with or give you advice. Just my gamer tag will be down in the description. I'm sure you can provide that.
It'll all be in the description.
But it's just my channel name, LostHoboFilmz. So yeah, get in touch if you want to.